All right, professional sassatron. You know, with a name like that, there's going to be problems. For sure, problems.
Being in a relationship with a man in 2024 is either harm or humiliation. You can take your pick on which one you feel most comfortable with. I recently started watching Worst Ex Ever on Netflix, and we don't even need to get into the graphic details of what these men put these women through. However, I think it is really interesting where women have been programmed to be desensitized to the catastrophic harm and violence that men perpetuate to us in these intimate relationships.
Okay, so we can cherry pick all day long. Okay, we can cherry pick all day long. But what does the data show us? Okay, it's clear as day. What is it? Just about 80% of divorces are initiated by women. Men are never the ones initiating divorce, yet they're the ones perpetrating all of the problems. Do you really believe that? I understand that men are definitely prone to being more violent than women, physically, for sure, physically more violent. And we know that. That's very, very clear. But are we going to pretend that men are more emotionally violent than women? Are we going to pretend that women wouldn't be physically violent if they didn't have a very clear physical disadvantage? I mean, all the statistics are out there. I don't need to run through the whole this study, this study, this study. I mean, I'll do that for you guys. If you guys want it, let me know in the comments. I have no problems doing this for you. But the point is, right? I don't want to get too bogged down in trying to prove this and this detail. I'm just saying that this, regardless of how you want to spin it, is cherry picking for the sake of some narrative. A narrative that we're all way too familiar with because we know it's bull. Let's continue.
More often than they don't. There is discourse to be had about seeing women's violence played out in the media and on screen, and it is really interesting to me where like men can't even conceptualize what that would be like to get constant programming.
Constant programming, okay? Sit down, you can't move for 8 hours a day. You're not allowed to hit anybody ever, especially if that boy is being mean to you. You're not allowed to hit him. He's allowed to say whatever he wants to you, but you can't hit him. Constant programming. Your elementary school teacher telling you to not be rambunctious, being told that you shouldn't approach women because that's misogynistic. Your sexual desires are evil. The only thing that's proper is only wanting one woman for the rest of your life. Anything outside of that is evil by nature. Striving for greatness is evil and it's entirely ego based. Building your body for the sake of strength is only for vanity and nothing else. The physical reality is completely unimportant. The only thing that matters is how nice you are. Saying what you want to say is a bad idea because you risk ostracizing yourself from the tribe. The tribe is the most important thing. The truth isn't. I can go on all day long about how men are constantly being conditioned and primed to work for the system. I can go all day long on this, okay? Now, you could argue this wasn't the case maybe 100 years ago. I would argue it's been going on for a long time, probably even longer than that, maybe just in smaller increments, right? I'm not saying men should be totalitarian monkeys, right? I'm not saying that. But what I am saying is for her to pretend that females are being more programmed in a negative way because of men is an absolute lie, okay? We are constantly being programmed to be feminine all the time, nonstop. Okay. And I'd argue today, men are much more likely to be programmed to be feminine than women to be programmed for what? Violence? I mean, how many women actually experience violence, right? Not a huge percentage. I mean, any form of violence against women is obviously not a good thing. Obviously, it's not a good thing, right? But them experiencing violence, if we look at the actual long term studies and all this stuff, right? There has never been a time in history when violence has been lower against women. So where is this idea of programming coming from? Because nothing really supports this other than just propaganda pieces with no basis in reality. I just don't understand. I just don't understand this. And it's constantly being talked about. The funniest bit of programming is that we're supposed to sit here and just pretend it's the truth. If we don't pretend it's the truth, automatically we're one of those guys. I just don't understand. I'm totally for protecting women and all this, obviously, right? This shouldn't even be a discussion. It's very simple, right? I just don't understand where these people are pretending like this is some rampant issue that needs to be solved. When are men going to become feminine enough for women to stop bringing up this garbage? I just don't get it.
Constant stories, constant newsreel of women being at the hands of men's violence.
Constant newsreels. Do you guys trust mainstream news for anything? I mean, it's all about clickbait and getting views. That's all it's about. It's not about spreading truth or anything of this nature. It's purely what is going to get us the most amount of outrage so we can get people watching. It's clever journalism and it's all very Machiavellian. People are cherry picking stuff all the time, right? To create cases for things that aren't intellectually honest. Okay? It's not intellectually honest to do some of these things. It's all sensationalism. And if you believe that, then clearly there's always going to be a newsreel. It's just easy to sell. Okay. It's outrageous. Some person doing some crazy thing is easy to sell. It's harder to sell women doing bad things because it doesn't really sell as much. This is the truth. Guys doing crazy things are always going to sell, right? Because there's always going to be a victim narrative and how could he? And it just plays into the current environment of how men need to change. Okay. Men are the problem. They will constantly look to bolster this stance because it defends their narrative instead of looking at what's actually going on. And what's actually going on isn't as clear.
And then they wonder why we're loud, we're vocal, we're standing out against it, my account is about it. They are awarded a luxury that women are not awarded, which is
We don't have a luxury. We really, really don't. Everything that you have as a guy has to be built. If you're lucky, maybe you're born in a 6'4" body and maybe people won't bully you physically. Maybe. Maybe. Sometimes you get lucky, but on the same hand, though, you could say a woman can be very lucky, born beautiful, right? I'd argue it's way easier to be born beautiful even than being like a 6'4" male. So, I mean, all things considered, right? It's not, guys aren't offered any luxuries. They really aren't. Everything that you have to build on your own. Now, I don't know where this idea comes from. Like, what do guys get that's such an amazing luxury that women don't have? Other than the physical reality that on average, guys are physically stronger, right? On average. So, yeah, I mean, that's nice, I guess, right? That's probably a little bit of an advantage in the public sphere. But anywhere in the developed world, right, there's such protections against this that you don't really even get the advantage of that anyways. So, yeah, where is this mass violence being perpetrated?
to not see them being splayed out under these violent attacks. So this is my daily reminder to myself and to you that we are not being dramatic and these conversations need to be had.
This conversation has been had for the better part of, I think it's like 50 years now. 50 years. And I'm not saying we got to shut it down. This problem is always going to exist perpetually. There's always going to be some freak running around doing crazy. Always. It's never going to change, right? All we can do is put better controls in place to prevent that. I'm never going to condone it, obviously. So before someone tries to step in and say, oh, well, this is an issue. Like, everything's an issue, guys. Everything's an issue, okay? Everything is a problem. We have to look at it and say, okay, there's obviously an issue, but is it the most important thing? Are there other larger pressing issues? It's sort of tiring to listen to this stuff all the time, right? You always hear it and it always makes you question reality a little bit and who's spinning narratives and what is the actual truth. If you like this video, like and subscribe. If you want to see more of my private content, don't forget to check the link in the description below.